Welcome to Face to Face. Our guest today, again, for the second time, Kevin Deabler, who is co-founder and principal of Rudi Architects, which specializes in design of the hotels, hospitality industry, and restaurants, among other things. And we are going to talk to Kevin about what is happening in the hospitality industry, especially in the light of COVID, and more specifically about the restaurant design, more in the short term and the long term. And Kevin actually is working currently on some of these designs as well for the restaurants. So Kevin, welcome back to our show again.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Sure. So restaurants, whether you are in business or whether you own a restaurant, whether you are a consumer, restaurants are in everybody's mind. Okay, restaurants are opening up. When I go, what happens? And the owners are struggling that how they can have a safe opening without any impact of, risk of catching COVID. So my question to you, what you are doing in the short term and what is the trend you see right now?
Sure, I think that what we're starting to see transition right now, we're a few months away from when the real shutdown occurred, and I think everybody understood that restaurants and public gathering places are places that you have to avoid, and it seemed really kind of inhumane and unkind to client base that we work with, and it's sort of singling out an entire segment of spaces that people actually use to feed themselves and go out and be in the public. And we've always known that restaurants bring communities together. So the idea that they were sort of sidelined and pushed away and had to shut down is a tough pill for them to swallow. So we also know that there's a critical part that they play in terms of just feeding people. So the idea that the first phases of reopening were to allow restaurants open space and sort of open up and do takeout. We really worked on several of these kind of like emergency reopenings, initial, like for Coppersmith or Dorchester Brewery, the open space for Mariel downtown. The way that we looked at this was really just to kind of like get them open in their outdoor spaces first and sort of open up within the guidelines. And I think that was really about spacing tables and kind of just purely doing whatever we could do to make sure that patrons can come back into those spaces quickly and do it in a safe manner. So there was probably more emphasis on things like square footage and distances of spaces and all this kind of parameters that were new to us, but then again they were also very familiar because that's kind of what we do, and it's sort of a part of architecture and design of restaurants that gets maybe overlooked as just occupancy plans and routing of circulation, and these are things that we do continually when we get our restaurants approved by authorities, but now we kind of had to prove it quickly and do it in a quick manner.
So now, wherever we are with current state of COVID pandemic, what is going on in the minds of the restaurant owners right now in the long term or the near future, I should say?
Yeah, we're starting to see some of the restaurants that projects, kind of continue. There were ones that were in development that probably slowed down because construction had to stop. They're picking back up and they're kind of making adjustments to make sure that that they can open up in a safe manner, and everything that we did still applies moving forward. But we're also starting to see some of our restaurant operators pick up projects that they intended to do months and months ago before COVID, and go through with them because as I said, the needs for communities and feeding people and all that still exist, and it's really, that'll never go away. So those that are trying to kind of continue operating, want to make sure that these spaces are viable and they're successful and they're still adding to the community and to the vibrant areas that we have in our city.
So now, do you think this whole idea in our mind and about distancing and not coming too close in public spaces, it will have some long-term impact on the dining experience or designing of dining spaces, or it is just you think it's a temporary phase?
I think it'll have a long-term effect. I don't know that we're going to be comfortable sitting in really cramped spaces. That will take some time to come back, and I'm not sure when that would happen. And right now, I think that it's really about making spaces that feel comfortable but not awkward. It's like you get in Boston's not short on any areas that have small and tight spaces. It's kind of like almost what defines Boston and
Boston, sure.
real urban neighborhoods. But there are other ways to get this to happen, and I think there's technology that's sort of speeding up checkout and reservations, and the appetite to kind of just go and show up at a place and see how it goes is something that is going to be a little bit tempered and managed, and anybody who is kind of comfortable enough to venture out right now is starting to see that, and it's just really like, if you decide to go out, you kind of have to have a plan for it and understand what restaurants are doing a good job at it and which ones you feel comfortable in. And with the weather being nice, being outside is always the best bet right now with what the experts are saying. And that's, we're seeing some really cool and innovative spaces being done.
Now, talking about the outside experience, I'm sure you must have heard about this Moody Street in Waltham.
Well, I know where that is, but I haven't heard of it.
So what Moody Street, what the city has done, that it's one of the main streets in Waltham, and they have closed the entire Moody Street from one end to another end. And they have asked all the restaurants, a lot of restaurants there, to bring the restaurant outside. They have put the seating arrangements outside, and all the restaurants have done there. And actually, I have been there twice. I live in Weston nearby, so my family and I, we have been there twice. And it is absolutely fantastic experience.
That's good.
It feels like that you are really sitting. There is a nice tent above, and the roads are closed. There is no traffic. People are walking there, and you're sitting outside. And it feels like really, the European or some really outside Mexican, the cafe experience, really. And some, I was talking to some friends, and they suggested that, maybe Moody Street should do it, just close the Moody Street forever, and just keep it like this. So this is one long-term thing I'm seeing. What about your design experience when it comes to outdoor eating, especially in Massachusetts, given the very severe winter time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. Well, outdoors in the winter, that'll be something we maybe tackle in the next couple months, when people start realizing that it's getting a little cooler. Maybe we should think about how we're gonna make people comfortable. And but I think you're right, and that's one of the trends that I hope really sticks, is that we have really favored the automobile in our urban spaces. It has captured the most amount of space and attention, and obviously for good reason, and crosswalks and lights and things like that can manage it. But when you just purely think about how much space the parking space takes up, the street itself, and how much we're favoring the car versus these gathering spaces. And so I think there's ways of kind of making patrons feel really safe, and you're seeing things as literal as jersey barriers just kind of plunking down, and you feel safe that you're not going to get a car coming and hitting you on that. But then again, it's a very cold thing to be next
Sure.
to. So I think it's trying to make some decisions on how you set up your dining space, how you segment it from fast traffic areas. And Moody Street is just one example, but we have that happening all over the city. And I live in Dorchester, and we do a lot of our work there. And there's Dorchester Avenue, which, is could be a great area if more patrons are able to kind of like come out there, and it creates a much more of an inviting urban area. So I do think, and I hope that this attention to slower movement and biking and sitting down and having a meal while you're in an urban space is something that urban planning and all of the policies can start to sort of like favor.
Now, talking about the urban and suburban now, do you see any difference in restaurant dining or designing experience in urban versus suburban? Because the Boston also has some very vibrant urban suburban communities, and how it is going to play there.
Yeah, I think it's it all comes down to math. Like it's
Sure.
6 foot separation. I've been sort of playing around with these ideas about how can you really just maximize that in a space. And it's obviously the suburbs and other areas have more space to deal with. They probably just have more flexibility with how they can do it, but there's more I think need in urban areas, more denser areas, for people to kind of get out of their apartments and go down to the street. So as long as the space is there, they can kind of manage things in the exact same way. They're certainly the suburbs could probably manage an 8 foot separation or 10 foot, and it would be fine. You wouldn't even notice it. But we really kind of have to deal with the sort of guidelines that are given.
Now, I know, Kevin, the Rodi Architects has also worked for a number of hotels, and how this is playing up in the hospitality or hotel industry.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the larger brands being right on top of it, and there's a way to, I think everyone's expectations have changed a little bit as to what their expectations are for housekeeping. Feeling comfortable in an elevator, getting used to wearing masks and things like that. That is kind of going along with society's acceptance of kind of moving back to normal. And then anything that's sort of related to the adjoining food and beverage areas, it's a little bit of like just making sure that people feel safe, and that those restaurant spaces and those areas are also set up in a way that can feel natural. But the again, the brands, major brands are on top of it with making sure that there's a reservation system in place, and that no area gets overcrowded without people checking in. So we're seeing people start to kind of come back to hotels now and lodging.
Now, before I let you go, I have one last question for you. What are the 3 advice you will give to restaurant owners today?
Well, I would say, look at the first, safety first is really, of your staff and personnel, and the food safety, and that's an industry that's always been on top of it. We see a lot of great training programs, and that's probably just the sort of wise advice right there, to just keep safety in mind. Number 2, move ahead with your spaces and look at takeout, and look at opening up again. And hopefully we're kind of moving through those that are saying that I'm done as a restaurant, and this was something. But we really encourage our restaurant clients and everyone to give it a go and work through that. And then number three is really kind of try to make your own personal decisions about your concept and how that needs to change. Understand that you play a very important and vital role to kind of keeping communities together. And restaurants are one of the first places that people come together in a community, and really just keep innovating, keep thriving, and try to make a go for it.
Okay, I think, Kevin, with that, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to chatting with you sometime in the future again.
Excellent. Thank you for
Thank
your
you so
time,
much.
Upendra.
Sure.
All right.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.